Thanks again. This video we're going to see how to connect to Azure. Yes, you can connect to Azure Studio by using code, by using the Azure CLI interface or any PowerShell or any other script. Also by using code. So the connectivity I'm talking from outside the Azure. So in the previous video, we have seen how Azure by having the line Azure command line. But now we're going to see how to connect to Azure from outside world, from outside Azure. These are all the different ways. So if you are planning to use Studio, in most of my Azure samples, I'm going to the Visual Studio. I'm using community. So if you are using Visual Studio, you have to install a workload, unmodify. So there will be a Azure development workload I already added. So we are planning to use Visual Studio to develop the applications for Azure. So you need to install this development workload. And once you're done with that, then download and install it. Now we will see how to connect to Azure by using Visual Studio. So this is my Visual Studio. On tools, options, there will be Azure Service Authentication. So there you can select the Azure account you want to authenticate, and it will ask you to log in the browser. Once you logged in, so this will add your Azure account to your. And I also strongly recommend you to install either Azure CLI or PowerShell in your local so that you can connect to your Azure. So I installed Azure CLI, Azure CLI, a Microsoft Azure new folder will be installed. There you can click on Microsoft Azure command prompt. This will help you to connect to your. So now how to do the login. So you can on AZ login. So this will ask you to connect to the account. This is not the preferred way or a secured way. Yeah, so could not locate. So these are all some issues you will see. And connecting your PowerShell, connecting to Azure from outside world by using your credentials is not a preferred way. So there is another way we can connect to Azure outside world. And we're going to see that in the next slides. So what is the best way to connect to your service principles? So that is a definition for service principle. Service principle is a secure identity for applications, services, automated tools to access Azure resources. So it's acting like a user code with permission scope via rollbacks, etc. The principle of least privileges, follow the principle of least privilege. It's created from application object in Microsoft Entra. The service principle, data stages, it's called as a Microsoft Entra, and uses credentials like client IDs, secrets, or certificates for authentication and allowing apps to perform specific actions like read, write, etc. So by this definition, don't worry, like has a very complex statement in those definitions. So let's see, simplify what is a service principle. So this is your house or an office. So in your house, you have three adults. So they work in different timings. So they go out at different times and they come out at different times. So this is person one with key one, person two with key two, person three with key three. So here you think this house is like a Azure. and it has Azure resources inside. And P1, you think it as a application one, and it will have key one, P2, P2, application two, key two, application three with key three. Sometimes if person one and person two both are coming together, going together, then they can use the same, they can use the same shared key. So which is key. So here, this key, I'm calling it as a service principal. So in your Azure, you will create different service principals and you will distribute those service principles, or you will hand over those service principles to the applications or to the teams or to the persons, and they can use those service principles like a key to enter and access into your house like Azure. So in your office, even though the person like the manager and the developer, the tester, they have like tags, for few employees, for few resources, they don't have access. Let's assume the server room only manager can access, but the key side, the key, it restricted. Similarly, when you are creating service principles, you can define when you are assigning the service principle to the persons, you can define the roles. So a service principle which have read-only role, it can only used to perform read-only operations. Want to write something, then you have to obtain a service principle with like read, write, or write permissions. So let's see how to create like service principles and they can use it. So go to app registrations, click on new app registration. I'm going to give test key, and here the key, whether this can be used for single tenant or multi-tenant. That means in your application, in your organization, you can have multi-tenants, like a tenant for uh, dev and testing and another tenant for production. So you can create service principles which can be operated in multi-tenants or single tenants, and these are with some personal Microsoft accounts, and this is personal Microsoft accounts only. They're like Skype and etc. But we are going to create a single tenant because we have only single tenant um, service principle. And if there are any issues with the service principle, you can select a redirection rule and define whether it is a web and um, URL for it, but I'm not going to use that. So this, I'm going to create a test key as a service principle. For readability, you can find SP, test key SP, click on. So this is the service principle. It can have the client ID, it can have the tenant ID, and this one. So for a service principle, you can have a certificate, you can have a secret, you can have a federated credentials, and I'm going to use the secret. So this secret will be used as a like password when you try to connect to Azure by using your applications. Either it can be a CLI or it can be a console application or it can be a web API. So this secret, it can be used as a password. Just create a new secret as new just a secret. You can give the readable name like a dev secret for friends application, like that you can give. And so this secret, it's going to expire. So the default time will be 180 days, 6 months. You can reduce it to 3 months. You can reduce it to 1 year, or 18 months, 24 months, or you can do a custom. So if you want to have a short-lived secrets, you can give this. So yeah, so I'm going to use months. And so once it get created, so the value will be here. You can copy that into your clipboard and you can use it in your applications. Anyway, I'm going to delete this secret. That's why I'm showing these secrets and client ID. But in your application, in your real-time project, never ever share secrets and client IDs with anybody because they can tamper them. Okay, we created service principal and now we are going to use the service principal credentials here in the Azure CLI. So the Azure CLI command for connecting to your Azure by using service principal will be here. So this command is the login _service -principal to you. So you is username. So this will be your service principal client ID. You can get it from here. You can get it from here. So the username is the app client ID. Password is the secret we set in the service principal secret section. So this will be the secret, so the value. Then the password and tenant ID, even we'll get it from the uh, service principal. These three values you have to grab it from your Azure portal and then you have to use it here. But again, here I'm not going to like copy and paste them. So I'm going to create variables. So you can, I already set variables for the app client ID, secret, tenant ID. So here set test variable equal to testing variable. So the testing variable is the value wherever I want to use. So I kept in a, I created a variable called test hyphen variable and the value will be testing variable. So a similar way you can set your variables for your Azure CLI, like the client IDs and keys, everything you can um, create like this and using the values by creating variables will give you a security so no one else can see the secret. Also, once you are defining the variable and you are using it in the times, setting the variable and how can you access the variable hyphen percentile test or echo. So when you echo, use percentiles, the variable name that will give you the value. I already grabbed the values, the client ID, secret and tenant ID from the Azure, and I created the variables app hyphen ID, secret and tenant ID. Now I'm going to use in this command. So we created a service principal and we are going to use those values to log in the service principal. If I use this command, it will throw an error because just we created a service principal. We did not just we created a key, but we did not assign anything to it. So now we are trying to use a key for which nothing get assigned. So definitely you're going to see a error message. So no subscriptions found for this secret or this app client ID. It's showing no subscription assigned because we just created a key, a app registration, but we never used it. So how can you assign a a particular key or a service principal to your resources. So I want to assign it to the subscription level so that I can log into the system. So select the subscription, and here you can click on access control. So this will show what kind of access controls you have, and you can add a role assignment. So there are different kinds of role assignments you will have. So these are job function roles, and these are privileged administrator roles. So these are the, like, you're trying to assign a service principal to the function, to a job. These are all the roles you can do that. And if you're trying to administer, so this key I'm using to authenticate my Azure. So I'll go to the administrator role. And so here you have owner, contributor, uh, and there are um, various roles. So I'm going to select contributor, and next select. So here you can um, you can search. So this is the service principal. Here you can add the members, the particular role. So here you can see user, group, or a service principal. I'm trying to add a service principal as a member to this subscription. So test ESP, select, um, and so it has been added here, and you can review and assign. Finally, review and assign. Now you can use the same command, log into your Azure by using Azure CLI. AZ login service principal, the same client ID, same secret, and same tenant ID earlier I used. Earlier, the service principal has not provisioned with any subscription level access. Now I assigned as a contributor. So you enter now, it's going to show you. So that is a cloud name, and this is the ID. Like, these are all the. So once you authenticated Azure CLI with your service principal credentials, now this interface, this Azure CLI, is interacting like a service principal. So whatever transactions you are making here, whether you are reading resource group, writing resource, updating resource group, creating resource group, deleting resource groups by using commands, by using Azure CLI commands, the transactions will be carried out on the name of the service principal. So so once you logged in with service principal, then I'm going to retrieve group Azure group list. It's going to retrieve all the source group information. So there is one resource group .NET updates, and the another resource group my RG name, and it will give the complete information. So which location it is, and what properties. So it will give complete information, um, under which subscription it has. So this is now you are interacting to Azure by using the service principal, and you are able to read the resource group information. Quickly, let's see how to create a resource group by using Azure CLI. AZ group create. So location equal to West US, resource group test GRP CLI1 CLI. Yeah. It's going to create a resource group with test GRP CLI. So let's list. See, you can see three groups. Earlier, I have seen we have only two, and now we are seeing three. So let's delete Azure source group. Hezi, yeah, delete, delete source group equal to test ERP CLI. So this is going to delete, and before deleting, it's going to ask your confirmation, and the deletion will take a little bit. Yes, it is deleted, and then check group. So the Azure CLI interface is very useful when you are working with your Azure resources. Instead of going to the portal, you can just you can have commands, and those are very quick. You can see the um, useful information at one place. So in this video, we have seen how to connect to your Azure by using external sources like Visual Studio and CLI commands, Azure CLI. And after that, we have seen what is the service principal, how to create a service principal, then how to provision service principal with access. And after that, we use the same service principal credentials, the secret and the ID to generate the token, and that token we used UCLI to connect to your Azure. And after that, we managed resource groups by using the commands. So in the next video, we are going to see how to use a .NET console application to connect to your Azure and manage the resources, like creating all the resource groups, creating the resources, um, creating the resource groups. Thank you all for watching the video. Please sit tight and watch for next videos. I'm going to publish more Azure topics, more realistic and real-time scenarios, like developing the applications to manage your resources, and where you are using different credentials by using the service principles. Service principles are a very powerful tool in Azure. So we are going to explore more in terms of service principles. And your feedback is very important. Please provide your feedback so that I can improve the quality based on your feedback, and also suggest the topics if you want to learn on Azure specifically. Definitely, I'll take your input and I'll make the videos. Thank you all. Happy coding.